All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, all you magnificent melon heads of the world. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Today's March 26, 2025. The top story this morning is our GDP is plummeting, crashing even, some might say. And I don't care. It's not a bad thing. This is actually a good thing. Might be saying, what? Jack, you're such a perma bear. You're celebrating a recession. No, it's why is that GDP number heading so deeply negative, and why am I so optimistic about it? It's because of gold. It's because of that giant sucking sound you hear, gold being hoovered out of London vaults back into the United States. The constant drain of metal that has been created because of this tariff story, and will they tariff and won't they tariff, and who knows, who cares? I'm sick of talking about tariffs. I'm sure you're sick of hearing about tariffs. But the reason why this gold is moving is because of the threat of tariffs, because, well, gold smelted in Canada or gold smelted in other tariff countries would be subject to that 25% levy. And so we better get the gold here into the States before those tariffs hit. And so everyone and their brother is buying up gold and bringing it into the States before these tariffs hit. COMEX gold inventories are skyrocketing. Silver is not far behind, and it's starting to move. Well, I shouldn't say starting. It's been moving gold's price higher for months now, and it's continuing. And the reason why I bring this up is because we're going to get some GDP data tomorrow, and every indication is it's going to be even worse than it was the last time. And you remember it was about a month ago, we were talking about how the net exports had just absolutely plummeted, this big, deeply negative number. Now, at the time, I thought it was because of companies trying to front run the tariffs, try to order more raw materials before the tariffs hit and get it into the country. I was a little off with that assessment because, yeah, tariffs was a factor, but it was gold that was really doing it. Now, guys, you got to remember the GDP math. Net exports is one of the inputs into GDP. And if we import a whole bunch of gold and we don't export any more food or chemicals or energy or any of the other things that we export, well, then our net exports goes deeply negative. And last month, it was at an all-time low because of the 50 or $60 billion or so of gold that is currently being imported into the United States. Now, that does subtract from GDP. It makes the economy look like it's teetering on the brink of recession, which, newsflash, we've been in a recession since 2022, at least as far as 90% of the country is concerned. But again, is it really that bad of a thing? If gold is flowing into the United States, driving GDP lower, does it really matter? Does it really affect your day-to-day life? Probably not. Is it good for the country? Almost certainly yes. Because I do believe that there is a lot of paper ownership of gold out there, way more paper ownership than there is actual metal to represent that paper ownership. And maybe today is not the day that paper gold scheme blows up or that paper silver scheme blows up, but one day it will. One day somebody is going to go belly up because they promised way more gold than they actually had. It's going to cause everybody to make a run on gold. And when that day comes, whoever's got it, at the time the music stops, possession 9/10 of the law. And so that metal flowing back into the United States, it's got to be a good thing if and when that day finally comes, even if it drives GDP lower, which it is sure to do. Now, also going on this morning, we've got GameStop is in the news. By the way, how many times during the stream will I accidentally say GameStop? I can't talk about GameStop without accidentally calling it GameStop sometimes. Sorry, it's just a slip of the tongue. GameStop is in the news this morning because their board of directors unanimously approved a measure to allow the company to spend its reserve cash on Bitcoin. So GME fancies itself a little micro strategy or a strategy, whatever you want to call it. GameStop stock is soaring on this news, double digits. Now, look, guys, GameStop, this channel was born out of the meme stock craze. I was never that big a pumper of GameStop. I own some GameStop. This channel kind of started in the silver squeeze movement, which was a spinoff or an offshoot of the meme stock rally. That's where this channel came from. But I do have a place near and dear in my heart for GME and for AMC, even if those stories didn't turn out so well at all for the retail traders who piled in. I want to see this company succeed. I don't know if this is going to work or not. It certainly worked for MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy was very early to the game, though. This whole infinite money glitch that Michael Saylor has invented for himself, it works great right up until it doesn't. Now, I don't know that GameStop is going to go as far as Saylor has taken it. There's no plans to issue any complex debt instruments or anything like that, at least not yet. They're not announcing anything like that. But that being said, we're during one of the FOMO rallies right now, right? The thing about crypto, if you're going to hitch your cart to that horse, or if you're going to hitch your wagon to that team, you got to remember crypto winter is coming. Now, crypto winter will arrive sometime between now and say October of this year, which isn't all that much time. You got about 6-7 months maybe before crypto winter gets here. Somebody big is going to blow up. There's going to be some fraud. Look, the rug pulls and the fraud in the crypto sphere is just reaching a fever pitch. This happens every couple of years. We saw it the last time. It ultimately resulted in FTX and Celsius and Luna and all those other frauds that went down. There's going to be another series of them this time. So GameStop's timing here, I might question. I think they're a little late to the game. The time to do this was a few months ago. That being said, GameStop has about $4.5 billion worth of cash in reserve, and there is no limit to how much of their cash they can put into Bitcoin. So this is a little bit more liquidity will be flowing into the Bitcoin space. $4.5 billion, it's small relative to like a MicroStrategy, for example, but it is enough to move the needle. So maybe we have one more leg up, one more rally in Bitcoin prices before this winter sets in. A lot of that, though, is going to be determined on what happens in this AI bubble, in the AI mania, because Bitcoin tends to move in lockstep with the tech stocks. Also going on this morning, Nissan's got themselves a new CEO. Mr. Ivan Espinosa is taking the helm shortly over at Nissan, and he is signaling that he's once again open to a deal with Honda. Nissan, the troubled automaker, they need a bailout. They need somebody to come in with deep pockets and buy a big chunk of the company to get them out of trouble. They were in talks with Honda months ago. Those talks fell apart. Other companies like Foxconn has come out and said, we're interested. French automaker Renault has said, we're interested. So far, no deals have been made. Maybe Honda back on the table. 23andMe, their website was crashing yesterday as people were scrambling to delete their genetic data from the website before 23andMe sells it to God knows who. It's something we were warning about just a couple of days ago on this channel when they filed for bankruptcy, and it seems people got that message. Guys, if your data's out there, you could trust that they're not going to do anything nefarious with it, or you could log in and you could delete it. That's your option. Seems like a lot of people are taking that delete option. Dollar Tree is selling off Family Dollar. Looks like a little bit of a breakup in the House of Dollar this morning. Two private equity firms are buying Family Dollar from Dollar Tree. And you know what that means. It means Family Dollar, not long for this world. They're going to strip mine it for everything they possibly can. That is what they do. We've got BAE Systems, the big UK defense contractor. They are signaling that they are ready to pour more CapEx into defense just as soon as the government frees up that cash. They are not spending that money until they actually get the contracts. Maybe a little bit of show me the money going on in UK defense names, and 50 Chinese companies were just added to the U.S. blacklist over the concerns about smuggling of chips and technology into China for development of AI. Pay attention to that one, guys, because illegal sales into China is responsible for a big chunk of this AI bubble, even though they're all like, well, we insist our customers don't break the law. We make them check a box that says they're not criminals, so I don't know. Yeah, that excuse not going to fly for much longer. U.S. regulators are cracking down on this stuff. And sooner or later, these companies are going to have to answer for all those chips that they sold to China. Playing dumb will not suffice. Why don't we shrink my big melon of a head and let's see what's going on in markets this morning. Don't forget that like button. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right next to it so you can come back and have your coffee with the melon heads, because we do this one every morning. And right now, the S&P 500 is doing a whole bunch of nothing, up 3 points, 0.06%, essentially unchanged this morning. We've got the Dow is higher by 99 points, about 0.25% higher for the Dow. And the NASDAQ is also doing a whole bunch of nothing, 14 points lower, 0.07%. So stocks are kind of in a holding pattern here after a 3-day rally. Is this rally out of steam? Do we resume lower? Only time will tell. The U.S. dollar, meanwhile, back above 104 at 104.32. That's higher by 11 basis points this morning. And looking over at the bond market, we've got yields are largely higher, especially on the long end. The 30-year Treasury is up about 4 basis points to 4.694% this morning. The 10-year is up almost 4 points or 3.5 points, 4.345. The 2-year is at 4.002. That's up almost 2 points. And the 1 month is at 4.294, down a fraction of a basis point. Not a lot going on in bonds either. It is a quiet morning on Wall Street. Some might say too quiet. Gold, meanwhile, higher by about $5, $3,024 for spot gold. That's higher by 0.15%. Spot silver is up by about a nickel, $33.80 for spot silver, 0.16% higher. I like the shiny. Copper, meanwhile, a new all-time high for copper, $5.30. That is up by another dime this morning, or 1.73% higher. There was a story yesterday about tariffs on copper maybe coming sooner rather than later, driving copper prices sharply higher. Now, it's interesting. Copper, all-time high, being driven by tariffs. Gold, all-time high, being driven by tariffs. What lies directly in between copper and gold? Silver, nowhere near an all-time high. In my opinion, guys, silver remains the most undervalued asset in the world. It's only a matter of time. Right now, you got gold, the monetary metal, is ripping. You've got copper, the industrial metal, is ripping. And then silver, the 50% monetary, 50% industrial metal is, well, it's higher, but it's hardly ripping. Certainly not like copper and gold is. Again, watch that silver, guys. Platinum, meanwhile, is higher by about 50 cents this morning, 0.05%. Palladium is higher by about 0.8%. And WTI crude is about 1% higher. May WTI futures $69.64. That's up another 64 cents this morning. All right, let's talk about this one. The spike in gold inventories points to another large U.S. trade gap. And again, I don't think this is the best bad news I've heard in a long time. GDP heading lower because we've got so much gold. What a problem to have. What a great problem to have. The rush of gold bullion deliveries into New York depositories from overseas will likely keep the U.S. trade deficit close to a record. February merchandise trade data on Thursday are likely to show the deficit grew to almost $162 billion, according to Stephen Stanley. He's the chief economist at Santander U.S. Capital Markets. He's one of several forecasters who expect the deficit to widen or at least stay close to January's $155.6 billion, though the median projection in a Bloomberg survey calls for it to narrow. Much of the widening can be traced to imports of gold. Stockpiles have surged in recent months on concerns precious metals may be included in the Trump administration's broad tariffs. That's also boosted prices and created an arbitrage opportunity that incentivized traders to get their hands on physical bullion. Inventories of gold in New York's Commodities Exchange surged another 25% last month after climbing 43% in January. Stockpiles on the COMEX stood at a record 42.6 million ounces on Tuesday, nearly double the inventory at the end of 2024. Yikes, nearly double in 3 months? That is how much gold is flooding into this country. If you're on a transatlantic flight coming to the U.S. from the U.K., fun fact, you're probably sitting on top of a bunch of gold bars in the cargo hold. Apparently, airliners is the preferred means of moving metals. And you can see these charts they're showing here, guys. Look at gold in troy ounces. Now, these are, I don't know if these are daily or week. They're daily snapshots. Back at the end of 2024, say in November, we had about 17.5 million ounces in COMEX vaults. Now we are up at 41.9, more than doubled since the election. I mean, gold is just flooding into this country. And look, guys, silver, it's somewhat lagging. Silver was 311 million ounces. Now it's about 463. So silver has increased by about 50% over that time frame. But the drain has definitely influenced gold more. Silver has been lagging. It's been underperforming. Now, is gold going to come back to earth, or is silver going to play catch up? I don't know. But, guys, I'm telling you, silver, most undervalued asset in the world, bar none. Bar, get it? Yeah, pun intended. But when I talk about GDP and why this looks like it's bad, remember, guys, net exports comes out of GDP. You can see this big downward move in this chart. This is the Atlanta Fed's GDP Now tool. This estimates what the next economic reading is going to be. And back at the end of February, this thing dropped off a cliff when we got that net export data. all that gold coming into the country. So will we see another drop or will that loss narrow? We will know tomorrow. It'll probably be a few days before they update the Atlanta Fed tool. Meanwhile, Bitcoin's price is only modestly higher this morning, $87,594 as priced on Coinbase. That's up by about $170 from yesterday. We are now 3 days above the 200-day moving average and sitting here. Again, this is largely dependent on where tech stocks go. But right now, the big story in Bitcoin is this one. And again, shout out to the apes. Any of you guys still left out there? I don't know. But GameStop shares soar 17% after retailer says it will invest corporate cash in Bitcoin like MicroStrategy. Now, look, used video games, guys. GameStop has been desperate for a new business model for years now. Used video games and consoles, it's never enough. That was never going to be enough to support a publicly traded company. They tried this whole NFT marketplace idea a couple of years ago. That went up in smoke when NFTs did. So now their new approach is going to be becoming a Bitcoin holding company, apparently. Video game retailer GameStop announced Tuesday its board had unanimously approved a plan to buy Bitcoin with its corporate cash, echoing a move made famous by MicroStrategy. The meme stock jumped 17% in pre-market trading Wednesday following the news. The announcement confirmed CNBC's reporting in February of GameStop's intention to add Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to its balance sheet. The video game retailer said a portion of its cash or future debt and equity issuances may be invested in Bitcoin and US dollar-denominated stablecoins. So some things to pick at there. They're also including stablecoins, and that kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. Not going to lie, I'm not a big fan of stablecoins. But they're saying not just their cash, but also potential future debt and equity issuance may be invested in Bitcoin. So they're leaving the door open to Saylor's infinite money glitch here. The good and the bad comes along with that. As of February 1st, GameStop held nearly $4.8 billion in cash. The firm also said it has not set a ceiling on the amount of Bitcoin it may purchase. The sky is the limit, apparently, here. Again, guys, winter is coming at some point. GameStop, though, right now, it's only up about 11.25% only, so I probably shouldn't use that word. It was up more than that pre-market. It's giving back some of those, but still up double digits, $28.28. Congratulations, apes. I like to see the apes win. All right, also going on this morning, Nissan's next CEO said it needs partners and he's open to Honda. So maybe that deal is still alive, maybe not. There's their new CEO, Mr. Ivan Espinosa. Nissan Motors' incoming CEO, Ivan Espinosa, is open to pursuing a partnership with Honda, even after talks for a historic tie-up between the Japanese firms abruptly fell apart last month. The auto industry's push into intelligent cars is going to require a lot of work and a lot of investment that will probably need some partner, said Espinosa, who will assume his new role on April 1st. I'm open to Honda or other partners as long as these partners are helping us drive the vision of the business. Espinosa, who currently serves as Nissan's chief planning officer, takes the helm at a critical time for the company. The collapse of talks for an agreement to combine with Honda under a single holding company, a deal that would have created one of the world's biggest car makers, has left the struggling manufacturer in need of a lifeline. Top of Espinosa's to-do list will be to seek out collaborations to develop electric vehicles and technologies, part of a push to refresh the aging product lineup that's behind the slump in sales. So as the whole world pulls back from EVs, or at least a lot of the big motor companies in the U.S. do, it seems Nissan is doubling down. We'll see if that one works for them, possibly dusting off that Honda deal. 23andMe, meanwhile, says the delays were resolved after users rushed to delete their data. This is one of those I told you so kind of moments. 23andMe Inc. said Tuesday that it experienced website delays after a wave of customers sought to delete their genetic data before it can be sold through a planned bankruptcy auction. A company spokesperson said the site experienced some issues and delays due to increased traffic on Monday. In response to Bloomberg News questions about whether users were facing issues trying to close their accounts, those problems may have since been resolved, the spokesperson said, advising users to contact customer support if they continue to encounter trouble deleting their data. Now, it's important to note here, guys, that, let's just say it. Federal law prohibits companies from using genetic information for health insurance or employment, said Abe Schwab, a philosophy professor at Purdue University in Fort Wayne. who has studied genomic privacy in the US. The same restrictions, however, don't apply to other types of insurance like life insurance, long-term disability insurance. So look, this gene data, we don't really know if there's a risk of these companies having your data. They can't deny you a job. They can't deny you a health insurance. But hey, long-term care, life insurance, that could come back to haunt you if they sell this to the wrong people. So some people, out of an abundance of caution, are deleting their data. Now, I saw this paragraph, and this just kind of made me chuckle a little bit. Meanwhile, some customers on social media said they'd keep their accounts and weren't concerned about a possible sale of their data because a transaction will be overseen by regulators and a federal judge. Okay, sure. Go ahead and trust the government. And, I'm sure there's not cemeteries and mass graves all over the world full of people who said something similar. If trusting that the government has your best interests in mind is your thing, well, then good luck. Ride that rocket, baby. Look, I never signed up for one of these sites, so I don't have anything to go rush to delete. But I would not be one of the ones trusting the regulators. Let's just put it that way. Meanwhile, Dollar Tree to sell struggling Family Dollar for $1 billion. Oh boy, Dollar Tree is offloading its Family Dollar chain for about $1 billion to Brigade Capital Management and McCallum Capital Management a decade after buying the business. The deal, which is expected to close next quarter, marks a disappointing end to Dollar Tree's bid to establish itself as a discount giant with a price tag that's a steep discount to the nearly $9 billion it paid for Family Dollar. Yikes. Dollar Tree's store count will roughly halve following the transaction. The deal closes the book on a sad and troubled chapter for Dollar Tree, said Neil Saunders, managing director at Global Data. In a research note, the company has struggled for over a decade to make the business work. Now, here's what's interesting about this, guys. First of all, besides the fact that they lost $8 billion, I mean, they're getting almost wiped out on this deal. But they're selling to these two private equity firms, Brigade Capital Management and McCallum Capital Management. And what the private equity firms typically do when they buy a big retailer, well, the first thing they do is a sale leaseback agreement. They will start strip mining the company. They will sell all the buildings. The franchisors will have to rent them back. They'll pay themselves gigantic freaking dividends, and then eventually the company will fall into bankruptcy. I don't know for a fact that that's what they're doing here, but that is part and parcel of what private equity typically does when they come in and buy up a struggling company like this. So Family Dollar probably not going to make it. Dollar Tree stock, meanwhile, pretty much unchanged here, $67.24. It's up by about a dime on this news. Meanwhile, we've got BAE is ready to boost £1 billion investments amid the defense boom. Emphasis that they're ready to boost this. This has kind of caught my eye this morning. BAE Systems is ready to step up capital investment beyond the £1 billion, or about $1.3 billion, it spends annually as the UK's biggest military contractor prepares for a super cycle in European defense spending, according to CFO Bradley Grieve. We're spending at record levels already, Grieve said in an interview with Bloomberg's Tom McKenzie. We need to see the government spending plans, and they are plans right now, convert to actual orders. Once those orders come in, we're ready to build capacity to deliver those. So it seems like a little bit of show me the money here by BAE Systems. They're saying we need to see the plans because they're only plans. We need those to turn into orders. We need actual money from the government, and then we'll be happy to invest in military production. So it seems BAE saying we're not just going to go out on a limb here. We're not going to build new artillery shell factories on spec, not until you pay us to do it. And speaking of war and destruction, we got that whole trade war thing is going on here. U.S. blacklists over 50 Chinese companies in a bid to curb Beijing's AI chip capabilities. This one just hit this morning, just after midnight. The U.S. on Tuesday added dozens of Chinese tech companies to its exports blacklist, and its first such effort under the Donald Trump administration, as it doubles down on curtailing Beijing's artificial intelligence and advanced computing capabilities. The U.S. Department of Commerce's Bureau of Industry and Security added 80 organizations to an entity list, with more than 50 from China, barring American companies from supplying to those on the list without government permits. The companies were blacklisted for allegedly acting contrary to U.S. national security and foreign policy interests, the agency said, as part of its efforts to further restrict Beijing's access to exascale computing tech, which can process vast amounts of data at very high speeds as well as quantum technologies. And I would just add this paragraph down here is kind of interesting. Chinese firms have managed to gain access to U.S. strategic dual-use technologies via certain third parties, he said, referring to loopholes that have allowed Chinese companies to access U.S. technologies despite restrictions. U.S. officials will continue to step up tracking and tracing operations aimed at the smuggling of advanced semiconductors made by NVIDIA and AMD, he said. And it's that last part right there. U.S. officials will continue to step up tracking and tracing operations aimed at the smuggling of semiconductors. Tracking and tracing. So what are they doing? Are they low-jacking these GPUs? Are they going to actually start accounting for specific modules, finding out physically where they're shipping? Because if they're actually going to do that, boy, howdy, NVIDIA better watch out, because they are still claiming that they get 20% of their sales from Singapore, admitting that the chips aren't actually being shipped to Singapore. They're being sent to mostly countries like Malaysia. And then, well, they stop tracing them from there and then right to China from Malaysia. Well, if U.S. officials start putting some kind of tracking on these things and they start exposing that, yeah, that really is what's happening, which anyone who bothers to look can see that's what's happening. Well, then NVIDIA, Supermicro, Dell, AMD, companies like that might have to answer for all those chips that they're selling to China. It's interesting. These are American companies with American CEOs selling advanced AI technology to our biggest geopolitical adversaries. That's probably not going to go over so well. But hey, number go up in the meantime. All right, there's another one we got to talk about here, guys, and that's this company called Oklo. And I have seen this. I've been talking about this company on Twitter for a while. This is one of those nuclear companies that's just trying to jump on board the AI hype train. This one in particular is pretty bad. Now, just for the sake of information, Oklo as a company was on the brink of bankruptcy about 2 years ago. They were rejected in 2022 by the NRC. The NRC rejected their application for a combined operating and construction permit to build a nuclear reactor, one of these small modular reactors. It took them years to reject the permit. Oklo was on the brink of bankruptcy. They have no revenue. They had no products. And so what did they do? They went public via SPAC in 2024, and they got into bed with Sam Altman and the AI hype train. And ever since then, this stock has been going straight up and bouncing around all over the place. But at the end of the day, you've got a reactor design that has never been built before, that is not licensed to operate anywhere in the U.S. And this company claims they're going to have a functioning nuclear reactor by the end of 2027. In my opinion, and it's a relatively well-informed opinion, I worked in nuclear power for 15 years, this company is selling a bunch of snake oil. Now, just yesterday or 2 days ago, Oklo stock rallied big time on this news. Oklo engaging with U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission in pre-application readiness assessment. Now, this stock ripped on this news, but what are they really doing here? A pre-application readiness assessment. This is the meeting before the meeting, after they were rejected at the prior meeting, and this stock rallied double digits on this news. This is a standard step in the application process. They are still years away from design certification at best, let alone construction time, and nuclear reactors are notoriously prone to construction delays, and yet they maintain that they're going to have a reactor running by the end of 2027. Now, that was 2 days ago. The stock rips on this news of the meeting before the meeting. And then yesterday, they released their earnings. And you might be saying, well, what earnings? We got this one in Barron. Oklo stock falls on earnings. What nuclear energy fans should keep in mind. And what nuclear energy fans, which I am a fan of nuclear energy, by the way, but what you do need to keep in mind is what's said in this second sentence here. Oklo stock fell after the nuclear plant startup posted a wider annual loss, but analysts emphasized that the company's narrative matters more than the numbers. Okay, before we even get to the second sentence, understand the unbelievable stupidity of that statement there, all right? The nuclear startup posted a wider than expected loss, but analysts say numbers don't matter because narrative, because the story that we're telling is more important than the actual numbers, than the company's rate of cash burn. All right. Understand what they're really saying here. It doesn't matter how much money this company loses. We can still convince retail investors to pile into this stock. That is what this Wedbush analyst is saying here. Now, the next sentence is also very important. Oklo, which has no revenue, reported late Monday a loss of 74 cents a share in 2024, comparing with 47 cents a share in 2023, a 57% increase in their rate of cash burn from a company that has no revenue. Not only do they not have earnings, not only do they not have any revenue, but they don't have a product because the NRC still has not approved their reactor design. But they're saying, don't worry, we've got a narrative, so go ahead and buy the stock. And then last but not least, I got to get to this. With more than 14 gigawatts of capacity in its pipeline, the company maintains a strong position with the advanced nuclear fuel cycle, this analyst wrote. All right, that 14 gigawatts of capacity in the pipeline is nothing but non-binding letters of intent with other companies. Sam Altman had a meeting with some company and they said, sure, if the NRC licenses your reactor, which they're probably not going to do anytime soon, we'll buy one from you. I'll sign this document because I'm going to put this clause in here that says I don't have to do this if I don't want to. It's a non-binding letter of intent. And they're reporting it like, oh, yeah, we practically got contracts signed already. None of this is contracts. No money has changed hands. None of these companies are actually obligated to build these reactors. They've got 14 gigawatts of capacity in their story, in their narrative, in their book of people who say probably, maybe, someday. And they're spinning this like they've already sold these reactors. Now, in the analyst's view, Oklo is positioned to capitalize the push for nuclear energy solutions on the federal and commercial fronts with the so-called AI revolution in its early innings. And then that right there kind of summarizes why this story, why this narrative is more important than numbers, because this is not a nuclear story. This is an AI story. This is a Sam Altman story. This is a number go up story. This is a forget math, forget science, forget physics, even though all those things get a vote. Just listen to what this hypester is selling and buy the stock. And then don't worry the fact that their cash burn is increasing. Guys, this is dead money here. I see so many people talking about this. Understand, without the NRC's approval, this thing will not get built. It doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter who's the Secretary of Energy. None of that matters. If the NRC doesn't give their blessing, it ain't happening. And the NRC, the last time they weighed in on this, they said, no, not even close. That was years ago. And they haven't even submitted their application yet. The application takes years to approve, and they're still saying we'll have a reactor built in 2 years. Now, look at what this stock has done since November. I mean, I remember when this thing was ripping, all this was going on. And I'm saying, guys, this company has no product. They have no earnings. They have no revenue. And then during the sell-off in AI, this thing just plummeted right along with the pipe dreams about AI. Now, as stocks have rallied the last couple of days, this thing has crept up. But all the while, this is a company that loses money and has no product. And, well, it's just indicative of this whole AI mania, this whole hype train. I mean, I like nuclear power. I believe in the technology, but there are plenty of companies out there with better reactor designs that are further along in the licensing process, like NuScale, for example, who actually has design certification from the NRC. These guys are stock salesmen. Run, do not walk for the exits. I have no position in any of these companies, by the way. And guys, I just want to say thank you very much to Viv B. Thank you, Viv B, so much for gifting 5 Nobody Special Finance memberships. Welcome to the Melonheads, you guys. And if you're one of those 5, say thank you to Viv. That was very nice of you, Viv. Thank you for supporting the channel. Metal Seer says, why buy stock in a company when you can just buy Bitcoin? That is a great question, Metal Seer. And the answer is you can't. And the same reason why people are piling into these complex, crazy debt instruments that MicroStrategy is issuing, because a lot of these funds and a lot of these institutions have rules that say they're not allowed to own Bitcoin, but they are allowed to own securities. They are allowed to own bonds. So if they can buy a stock or an ETF or a bond that represents a derivative ownership of Bitcoin, that's why they would buy it. Why would an individual? No reason. There's no reason. Like I don't buy MicroStrategy. I'm not going to buy GameStop. Or at least I'm not going to buy anymore. I do own a little bit of GameStop. I've had it for years. It's done nothing. But I'm not going to buy any more GameStop on this news, all right? If I want more Bitcoin price exposure, I'll buy more Bitcoin. But some people are not allowed to buy Bitcoin, so that's why they would do it, because the rules of their institution forbid them from doing it. Good question, though, Metal Seer. Thank you very much, sir, for supporting the channel. And thankfully, Yersi, you know him, who says, what do you think of the new 331 silver squeeze? Look, the thing about the whole, like, everybody get together and let's all buy silver on this day, that's kind of, I get the same vibe as I do from, like, the people who are like, nobody buy gas on Thursday because planet. And it's like, look, everybody's just going to fill up on Friday or pre-fill up on Wednesday so they don't have to buy. So I don't know that these, like, we're having a squeeze on the 31st. I'd love to see it succeed. Now, let me just say, one of the reasons why I think silver and gold could continue to rally more from here is because I don't see this rampant enthusiasm among retail buyers. I actually see a lot of the opposite. Retail is still, I think, net sellers for a lot of this stuff. My friend Bob Coleman at Idaho Armored Vaults has done a fantastic job of pointing out how premiums are so low because a lot of people are struggling with the rate of inflation, with the increase in their cost of living, and they're being forced to sell some of the physical bars that they bought over the last few years just to make ends meet. And so that supply of small denomination bars is driving down the premiums that those bars are selling for. A lot of those bars are actually ended up being melted back into good delivery bars to be delivered to the COMEX. So I still don't quite see retail participating in this. Now, if the guys are getting together and they're saying, hey, everybody buy silver on the 31st, maybe they're trying to get that momentum going again. I don't see it yet. I don't see the rampant fever for gold and silver on Twitter or on Reddit like I saw in 2021. So we're still a long ways out from that. That being said, I like this shiny. That is not changing. Not now. Not anytime soon. So good luck. Squeeze it, guys. Squeeze it all you want. Thank you very much, Lircy, for supporting the channel. And Gordon Guanu says 14 gigawatts is 11 and a half lightning bolts, according to Dr. Emmett Brown. Yes, very good. That's 11.5 Emmett Brown's worth of electricity. Is that a 1.21 gigawatts reference that you got in there? Yeah. You can't say gigawatt without some guy saying 1.21 gigawatts. But thank you very much, Gordon Guanu. Once again, guys, that 14 gigawatts in the pipeline, it's just paper, right? Like, if you want me to take a piece of toilet paper and write 14 gigawatts IOU on it, that's basically what Oklo has. There's no commitment there. They're not binding. There's no money changing hands. It's just a guy said a thing on paper, and he doesn't have to stand by it. But it convinces retail to buy the stock. So, hey, good luck. I hope that goes really well to you. Never mind the fact that they're burning money and that they don't have a product. But, hey, I'm sure it's going to end really well. Thank you very much, Gordon Guanu, for supporting the channel. And thank you, everybody, for having your coffee with the Melon Heads once again this morning. You guys rock. Thank you so much for the super chats and the generosity supporting the channel, as well as you magnanimous Melon Heads on Patreon and YouTube. You guys rock. Thank you for everything you do. Links down below, should you feel so inclined. Don't forget that like button, that subscribe button on the way out for the YouTube algorithm. Also, hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I love you guys. Until next time, live small and dream big.